Hey, everybody. I'm real excited to have Richard Grenfell on with me today. Richard and I have been chatting over the years, and we both started to kick off our businesses around the same time. One big difference is I was in the United States and we opened up a little bit faster than where Richard was, but because of COVID, he was locked down in Australia and had a lot longer time frame before he could really kick off his business. But he started going after dog and family photography and working with business coach Steve Saporito, and then he moved over to boudoir and headshots. I want to know about that as we talk about that, by the way. And his photography is killer, and he's averaging over $3,000 a sale, which is fantastic. He has virtually eliminated all zero sales since November of 2022, and his goal is to get to 1 million a year in revenue, and doing that in 7 months and then spending the other 5 months gallivanting around the world, enjoying life. Richard, I'm excited to have you on today and dive into what you're doing in your business. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much, John. That's a very enthusiastic intro. Thank you. I love it.
You're an enthusiastic dude, man. I mean, it's like it's so exciting to have you on here. Richard, you've had a lot of great success in the fact that you're doing this while traveling. I mean, right now, where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Porto, which is in Portugal.
He's in Portugal and he's going to be there till I think he said we recorded this in February, early February, and he will be there until April before he goes back to Australia and gets back to work. I mean,
Correct.
I want your life where I can just go to Portugal for 2 months and hang out.
Yeah, nice,
and,
nice, nice place.
and so I definitely want to dive into some of that. But
Yeah.
you're finding a great balance between life and doing your photography business, which I think is anybody's goal when it
Mm.
comes to doing this whole thing. How did you get into photography and what got you to make the jump from family and dogs to boudoir?
Good question. So, I'm actually a very late bloomer to photography. So, I was only really a hobby, and then I did my first paid job in 2017. So it's not that long ago, like compared to a lot of people, a lot of my friends. And I did my first wedding for $100 in 2017, which is kind of pathetic, but that's what I did just to get some portfolio. And then what happened was via another podcast, I suddenly realized that there was money to be made in this business, and sought out a business coach because I didn't know how to do it because my history was in different types of businesses. Um, did what everyone else did. I did weddings and I did families and all that type of thing. And then I sort of stopped doing families and I started doing dogs because some friends of mine were having success with that. And then drifted into boudoir and that's sort of now where I've sort of settled. So we only do boudoir and headshots now. And when I get inquiries for the other ones, I just actually turn them away and send them to other people. So rather than having what we do diluted into different genres, when I get those inquiries for weddings, for families, for whatever, I just send them to other people. So yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely like I had a list of a couple of different kind of photographers because I have a storefront in
yeah,
and we're right next to some really popular places, and people will walk in and ask us, "Oh, do you do this?" and "Oh, do
yeah,
you
yeah.
do that?" And I'm like,
Do you
I
do passport
could,
photos?
but I would rather send you to somebody else. I mean, we already do quite a bit as it is. We're not like as specialized as what you're doing with just boudoir and headshots, but
Mm,
there are things like I do turn around. I was going back in our chat history
mm,
earlier today, kind of like reminding myself of things that you and I have talked about over the years.
yeah.
And I remember there was a chat that you and I had done. You were talking about getting into the boudoir thing, and he's like, "It's killer, mate. You should go and do it." And I had already tried it, my hand in it, and I hated it. Like
Yeah,
I just wasn't really into. I mean, there was some aspects to it that I enjoyed. Like I love the interaction with working with clients and work like having that one-on-one is kind of cool. Just not have like dealing with 3-year-olds and 2-year-olds and dogs
mm,
that are crazy and stuff has
yeah,
its own dynamic. But when you're dealing with an adult person and
mm,
saying, okay, pose here, move here, or whatever, it's a different world.
yeah,
But there
yeah,
was
yeah,
some things that I just didn't I didn't like about it and the
yeah,
dynamics and stuff. So I think it's awesome that you stuck with it and you're doing fantastic. And it to each their own. I think like
yeah, yeah,
we find
yeah.
what works for us and we go with it, right?
Yeah, I firmly believe that, mate. Like you've got to, yeah, you've got to. I actually believe you've got to do what you like doing. That's just my opinion. 'Cause I think if I think I mentioned this on that other one, but I think if you know, like say someone was listening to this and heard, oh, you know, this guy in Australia is doing well with boudoir, and you decide to do it because you think there's money in it because someone else is doing well with it. I don't think it works. Like I've got a friend and she averages, and all she does is dogs. She's done dogs for, I don't know, 15 years or something now. She was sort of ahead of her time. But because she's so into that world, you know, I mean, she averages between five and $10,000 a session. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
that's all she does.
Right.
So I personally think it's important to, you know, stick with what you actually like because, you know, if, you know, so say family can't, like the last family one I did, I had this kid came in, he just went ballistic. And I thought, no, this just sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
I've
I
had
just,
those days, trust me.
yeah, no, but but especially me, like just kids screaming that just drive me. Anyway, so that was that's why I got out of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when you and I were emailing and texting back and forth about doing this podcast, one of the things that kind of struck me, and it's something I really truly believe in, and I think it's a big
Mm.
part of what photographers struggle with, and that's mindset. You know,
Yeah,
you mentioned a big thing with you was mindset and everything. What did you mean by that, and what helped shift your mindset from going from the $100 I do $100 wedding to now you're doing over $3,000 on a sales average and everything,
yeah.
and being able to say boudoir is my thing. I'm not doing kids and families and dogs and all that stuff because I think it's easy, like you said. I think a
Mm.
lot of people hear, "Oh, you're making money doing that. I'm going to go make money doing that," and then you're chasing something that somebody else is doing well because you
Yeah.
think that that's what's going to work for you.
Um, that's good. I guess uh, I guess the mindset thing is more just confidence in what you're doing. And I think the confidence comes from activity. And it's sort of like if you've got like if you go into phone calls or sessions, that thing in the back of your mind where you're doing it from a place of kind of desperation or clients can sense that. And so in my mind, like the mindset thing is where you've got to kind of look at those bigger sales. See, I mean, I look at 3 grand these days, and I will put it this way: I look at a $2,000 sale now. I'm really disappointed when I have one of those. That's kind of my low base now. And you said earlier that I don't have any no sales, and that's true. I've come very close quite a few times where people have gone away and then got back to me, and I've just sold a really base thing for $550 or something like that. So it's been touch and go on a few occasions, but I've never had to actually refund, the booking fees, which I say I will do when I book people in. So that actually hasn't happened at all. So it's not all beer and skittles, but it's but what I'm trying to say is if you can kind of normalize in your mind that what you do is worth that, and you are giving people value, and if you tell yourself that every day, and there's a million books you can do to help you with this, things like there's an author called how do you say her name? Jen Sincero. She writes about mindset and money and things like that, and goal setting and things like that. I think if you do that every day, then it just helps. I started doing that a year ago, and it started really basic. I started writing down goals and affirmations every single day, which I felt completely ridiculous doing at the beginning. You know what I mean? I just thought, this is just, but I thought, well, it can't hurt, like if I do this, it can't hurt. And what I found is it really helped. And when I go into these calls, I'd be in a good frame of mind to do it because you would know, John, like you've done calls. If you go into them in a bad mood or a bad frame of mind, they generally don't work very well. You've got to be positive and upbeat and be positive all the time.
Right.
So I think that's what I mean by that. But I think it's different for everyone. Like I think that's a very different thing because everyone's got different goals and different aspirations. So it's a matter of just determining on what you want and then achieving that, I think. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. And I think you said a couple of key points there that I think are really important. One is like I just interviewed Pete Coco, who is a headshot photographer here in the United States, and
Mm.
he says the same similar kind of thing to you of like, having that mindset of like, well, and he also says like, you're putting on a show in a sense when you're doing your persona is a little bit different when you're in front of a client than it might be when you're just doing your regular day-to-day thing.
Of course,
And
yeah.
and I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's just like you can't go onto a phone call and try and book clients if you're in a bad mood. You
No.
have to put that bad mood aside, put on your happy face,
Yeah, yeah,
like and put that forward, right?
yeah.
And so
And and
go
and
ahead.
really simple things like smile when you're making that call because people can hear the smile,
Right,
just
right.
really simple things. And when I started doing them, I had a whiteboard with all the things I needed to do because I've got the memory retention of a goldfish sometimes. But things like smile, like super simple stuff, and because that tonality comes through, in the phone calls. So just little things like that, yeah.
No, I think that's so true. And I mean, I think it's the same thing like you're saying when it comes to the actual session or the sales session or whatever that part is, you have to be you have to be in a place of just uppity up and happy
Yeah.
and positivity and like I know when I'm doing sessions, I make the joke. I said I never in a million years thought I would be making whoop, whoop, whoop noises and stuff like that when I
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
doing a
yeah,
job, but I have to do things to get my client, which for most part are dogs, to
yeah, yeah,
respond to what I'm doing. And so you have to wear that hat of like a different person when you're
yeah.
doing those things. But mentality and mindset is such a big thing when it comes to our business, as you know. Did you have any roadblocks or any kind of things that you struggled with when you first started, especially going into, I'm just doing these lower sales to, and having zero sales to
Mm.
not having any zero sales? And what were some of those things that kind of helped you to get over that hump so that you don't have any zero sales anymore and all that stuff?
Um, I think one of the big things I realized along the way is I don't think a lot of people, sorry about that. I don't think a lot of people realize, think about this, but this is something that Steve teaches, and that is that clients borrow from our confidence. So, and they completely borrow our confidence because people don't know how to buy photography. They've got no idea. We think they do, but they don't know how to buy photography. You know what I mean? Like they've got no idea. Like
Mhm.
they might have only, they might have had a wedding and paid some person a few $1,000 or something, and gotten 700 photos, but they don't know anything about wall art or anything like that. So I guess roadblock. I'm just trying to think. That's a hard question, John.
It's okay.
I, I
I
guess.
guess the question I'm going for is like when you first started and you were having those lower sales, maybe because like I think everybody in photography we don't jump into 3,000, $4,000 sales.
Hmm.
What kind of helped you progress to get to those
Oh,
numbers and stuff like
yeah.
that that helped you to be confident in what you do? Because I think a lot of photographers struggle with like, am I worth it? Am I not? When I first started this, I was like, I didn't believe that I was worth that
Hmm.
much, and I would never pay that kind of money for my photography and all that stuff. But over time, I understood that that's what photography was worth and that I had to change that
Okay.
mindset. So how was that for you?
Well, one thing I did do is personally, I put a lot of time into education with Steve. And when I say Steve, I'm referring to a fellow called Steve Saporito, who's one of the many coaches out there. He's the guy that I chose. There's heaps of them, and there's heaps of awesome ones. You just got to pick someone who you resonate with. And then also the other thing too was, and I'm a little bit like you, John. I think like I had no experience. Like I think I'd been renting a studio off another photographer for a little period of time. COVID hit, and I thought I'll just give it a go. I'll just go and lease a space. And then I think that just by putting some skin in the game and putting some money on the table gave me the motivation and the confidence to do it. And then as time went by, as you know, I built a studio on our property, which is a bit of a long story. but by spending a lot of money on that, it's a bit superficial, but having a nice facility and offering a really nice experience gives me a lot of confidence to
Right.
charge to charge good money, and that's not necessary. I mean, I know people doing the same sort of thing, out of the boot of their car, and doing IPS in people's homes. It doesn't really matter. But for me, I think that those two things did a lot of it, and then is by having the confidence and getting that confidence from the coach as to the system that I used, and that he'd had multiple studios in multiple locations, were all multi-million-dollar studios. So having confidence that the system that he taught works gave me the confidence that if I just copy what he did and don't question it, in other words, swallow a bit of pride and just do what you're bloody told, you know what I mean? That the results will come. And then to the point where I'm now at the point where I'm just of the opinion that if you do your absolute best to give people the best experience you can, and in whatever genre you do, then the sales will just naturally follow.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if you go in from a place of got to make a sale, and you're worried about it and that type of thing, then that's when it all falls apart, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I think if you go in with your best intentions to genuinely help people, and then whatever happens, that's when it all falls into place.
No,
That's worked for me.
I would agree with that. I think, like, when you go in with the mindset of, I've got to make this sale, the mindset is very different than I want to make this person happy.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's just very interesting how that all comes together in that regards.
yeah.
So you say you do boudoir and headshots. That's two very different things. So
Yeah.
how are you cross promoting that? And how do they meld into each other, or like do you like feed from headshots into boudoir, or one way or the other? How does that work for you, and how are you navigating that?
Shaking my head here. So they're two completely different things from a business point of view. Like, so the boudoir thing is exactly the same as any other portrait photographer. You get your leads, you turn them into clients, you turn them into sales. So in other words, you're out there and you're picking up people who have had the possibility of a portrait shoot in the back of their mind, and then turning them into a client. Whereas headshots, um, they always start from someone needing something. You know what I mean? So they're redoing their website or something like that, and their website designer says you need photos. Then what they do is they then jump on the computer and find a headshot photographer. So the headshots that I do are I get basically all my leads outside of referrals from Google. So I was actually smart a few years ago where I had a headshot page on my old website. So that SEO sort of caught up as time went by. I now rank number one for that, which, to be completely truthful, it's not a very competitive market where I am for that ranking. There's only maybe 2 pages in total of people even listing headshots on their websites. It's not like, I would imagine, New York, which would be just page after page after
Yeah,
page.
right, right. Everybody's
I,
doing
would, I
it.
would imagine. So, so the way that the headshot thing works generally, and during some downtime, I joined BNI and did in the Chamber of Commerce and things like that. But generally speaking, the way the headshots work is you get an email. We're a legal firm. We need 10 or 20 headshots or whatever. And what I find is that you've got to look at it from their point of view. And that is that what generally happens is the boss will say to his personal assistant, we need the air conditioner fixed, we need coffee for the coffee room, can you pick up my dry cleaning, and we need a photographer for headshots. And so that personal assistant does what all personal assistants do who are about 30 years old. They type in Google, contact 3 people. And so what I find is whoever gets back to them first usually gets the job. And that's kind of it, mate. It's pretty straightforward. There's not much to it, to be truthful. And
That's
so
awesome.
I treat the headshot part of the business as a very transactional business for businesses. They acquire, I go and do it, or they come to me, I send them an invoice, and that's the end of it. It's very straightforward.
Are you doing a lot of on location group headshots, or are you doing more like the individual headshot type of stuff?
The majority, I would say the majority are groups. So you
Groups.
go, so I've got a minimum, I have a minimum of four. I won't go anywhere for more, for less, hang on. I won't go anywhere unless there's four or more people.
Okay.
So I have a call out fee for that. And then I charge per photograph. So to go out on site, it would be a minimum of 150. I charge, just trying to remember, it's been a while. Yeah, 2 months.
You're on vacation for the last 5 months. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
yeah, so the minimum would be 400, about 650, $650. But you're in and out in an hour, as you know. It's
Yeah,
really,
no, yeah, yeah.
you know. And the other thing with those types of headshots is honestly, they value how quick you can do them, I find. Like they just want you in and out. You know what I mean? Because
Right,
they're busy people.
right,
Time is money. And then there's the other ones who will come in for one. And if they come into the studio, what I will do there is I'll treat them like a portrait client. And so it'll be a bit slower, a bit more of a deliberate. And I'll put them through an IPS session with in-person sales session with a bunch of photos. And I generally find that if they come in for one, they'll buy five. And if they come in for two, they'll buy 10. So I find it very easy to upsell those people to more photos. But so there's two parts to it. The business people have um, very specific requirements, and so you just go in and meet those requirements.
right.
Although what you can do is, and what I do is, I don't know whether anyone else does this, but it's worth getting on the phone to the boss if you can, and you just say to them, look, I understand your requirements. I just wanted to just double check that you've got getting everything you need. I'll say to the owner of these businesses, where they're lawyers or accountants or whatever, I said, like, do you do any speaking engagements? Like, do you speak at any of your body, at any of your professional bodies, or are you doing any writing where you need a photo for that? Because I said quite often I find that the photos that you need for your clients are different than for your peers. And they go, oh yeah, okay. And they start, so you just plant the seed, and before you know it, they send you an email. I'm going to bring in 2 suits, and I want to have all these extra photos. So that's a way to upsell those people into buying more photos. Is by generally offering more to the executive, the executive staff, the CEO, the CFO, all those types of people. So quite often you can turn like, a 10 headshot thing into 20 or 30. So I charge per photograph. So
Yeah, no, that's I mean, and that's the way a lot of photographers from the headshot
is
community do
it?
it. I was just kind of
Okay,
curious,
yeah,
you're getting it on location, or are you getting them coming into the studio and stuff?
yeah, yeah,
And I feel like there's value in both. It's like the difficulty of going on location, you're dragging all your gear and all that stuff, but you can get more bang for your buck in a lot of ways. But then,
yeah,
if you can
yeah,
get people to come into the studio and buy 5, 6, 7, 10,
yeah,
20,
yeah,
whatever
yeah, yeah,
photos, but you got to create that experience and that, then
yeah.
everything that goes with that. So with that, so boudoir is obviously a very different world than doing headshot photography. You're not going into a space to do that. You're bringing them
That's
probably into
completely,
your studio and stuff. But
completely
how
different.
are you treating the client? Like, what are you doing to bring in clients for a boudoir, and how is that working for you?
So, yeah, so with the boudoir side of it, to be truthful, mate, I do what you do, and that is I run ads on Facebook and Instagram, and I get them in like that. And I do. Do you still do wanted ads, John? Or
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, well, I do those, or I might do like a special. You get, $600 worth of stuff for $100 or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I do some stuff like that too. We do some different things. Most of our ads are still wanted and
Yeah,
everything, like our
yeah,
general ads that we have going all the time. But
yeah,
then we do like, different types of things like Portrait of the Month. And I partner with some different local, like, yeah, we're going to do a Valentine's Day themed actually got to get it to him tomorrow
yeah,
to start promoting it. But the pie place next to us, we partner together every now and then to do like a little giveaway type of thing. But
yeah,
and that kind of clientele is different. How
yeah,
we're getting them in. But so it's good to hear. It's good to hear. I mean, where I was going with that question is, I thought I knew you do Facebook, and I keep getting this over and over again with people. It's like, do Facebook ads still work? I'm like,
yeah, yeah. what I found with Facebook, and you would be aware of this way more than me, John, because you do way more. But I find that you'll run a campaign and it will just bomb. You know what I mean? Like I've had so many failures, it's just ridiculous. So I think that where people go wrong is they'll run a campaign and it fails and they give up because everyone just
Right.
gives up.
Right.
So you just got to try different photos, different copy, and I've done literally in the same week where I'll do one, and I was going and just fail, and I'll quickly launch another one, and that one will go fine. So I I honestly think there's a bit of a black art to advertising. Sometimes you just think, why is that one working and that one isn't? I don't
Right.
really know.
No, and I've always had this. I mean, I don't do it every single time and I don't do it consistently all the time, but one of my biggest things that we do a lot
Mm,
is we have those ads that we know are running and they're working. And I
mm,
mean, I don't shut my ads off. Like if it's
mm.
working, I keep it going.
Yeah.
And I just let it run. And
I do the same thing now because I did that thing with you, and I just turned them down to $1 a day now. So I
yeah,
forgot.
no. So if I want to slow it down, like right now,
Mm,
we've been booking a lot. And so we've slowed our ads down a little bit. I mean,
yeah,
we haven't turned them off. We just slow them
yeah,
down.
yeah,
So we're
yeah,
still getting leads, but we're just not getting as many, which results in less bookings. But we've got so many bookings, we're booked too far out. Like
yeah.
I feel like there's a diminishing return when you get too far out. Like, because then people go, oh crap, I forgot about that session I booked 3 months ago with you or
Yeah.
whatever. And so it's playing with that. But where I was going with that is like I also have ads where we're just testing, and if
Mm,
it gains traction and it starts doing stuff, then we just run that, and then when another one kind of fades out and isn't performing as well, I'll turn it off because I
mm,
have this other one. So I generally have three different kind of campaigns going at a given time. Not always. I don't right now.
mm.
Um, but usually I have two that are performing very well and one that I'm kind of testing. And if
Yeah,
the one and it's a bonus if the third one starts performing well and I don't want to turn the other two off, then
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
can just lower I call it a spigot. I just turn the money down and it just lowers how much output is coming from it. But it's good to hear that you're getting. Did you find like with boudoir and for the boudoir photographers that are out there or wanting to get out there
mm,
and do boudoir, are you finding that it is difficult to advertise with Facebook? Because I know when I was the short period of time when I tried boudoir, there
mm.
was a lot of difficulties because they were very specific on what you could and couldn't use for
Oh, yeah.
photos and
I,
all that stuff.
yeah, I've kind of got the hang of that. You're 100% right. Like my, my tip would be to schedule the ads so that way then when you submit them, you know if they're going to be rejected or not based on the photographs. So basically anything now that it's still the same, but they've gotten even stricter. If there's a bare bum, it will not a bare bum, but
No, I get you. I get you.
yeah, that will get rejected. Too much boob will get rejected. Sexually explicit kind of expressions will get rejected. So you just kind of just got to just like so if I do a campaign, I'll throw up um maybe 10 ads with 10 different photos and three will get rejected. So I just find out which ones are okay. You're 100% right. You do have to, don't leave it to the last minute to plan your campaigns, in other words, because you'll be fighting Facebook to get images approved in the
Well,
ads.
and I think one of the things you can say along with that is just because something doesn't get approved doesn't mean it's the end of the world,
No, no,
correct?
they just keep trying different photos until you get it approved.
Yeah, I found a lot of people that like get frustrated because like my ad didn't get approved, and then they go into
Oh,
this and it's a mindset thing. It's kind of the
yeah,
mindset, like, oh, I got a mindset. Like my mindset is just like nothing's going to work for me today, and it's just like
yeah, yeah,
no, like it happens with all of us. I mean, it happens with every business that's out there. I mean, it's just like here in America, we have the State Farm ads with this guy, and it's a guy Jake from State Farm. Like if that didn't take off and people didn't resonate with Jake from State Farm or whatever, they would stop using Jake from State Farm. But people resonated, people reacted to it, were engrossed in it. It became
yeah,
its own little meme and thing or whatever. And
yeah,
so it's like, hey, we're gonna run with this, right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
like they test different things, and sometimes it works, and sometimes like, well, that was a flop. Let's not do that again. But every business in the world does this. We're not unique.
Yeah. I think the big thing is the turning point for me was like I learned this back when I was doing dogs actually, and that is to write your ads to an avatar. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like for example, I remember I did one for senior dogs, and I said something like should I had the ad in front of me, but it was along the lines of have you had your dog so long, do people stop and ask about your dog before they ask about you? And do you have to help your dog up into into the onto the lounge at night and things like that? And there's the trips to the vet are more frequent, but you wouldn't trade him for the world. That type of language. And I found that when I started doing that, and it's different for everyone, and all I did was just repeat what clients were telling me, and I do the same with boudoir. So I just repeat back what the reasons that they came in. So when they tell me the reasons they came in to do a shoot, I will use those reasons and create ad copy around that. And I found that what happened was, one, I got more inquiry, and two, they were way easier to convert because they were the people you wanted,
Right.
if you know what I mean, because they were already they're already the people that you want to book. Like, and I'm sure you're aware of this too, John. But I hear this from pet photographers. What you don't want are breeders. People who have show dogs. Like they find, again, you would speak with more
I
authority.
agree. Show dog people are my least favorite clients.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like they bring in beautiful dogs that are amazing and
yeah,
awesome, but
yeah.
they don't want to spend any money.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that's what I mean. You just want regular people. You just want
Well,
regular.
and it's like when you're running the wanted ad, and for those of you who don't know what a wanted ad is basically, we're looking for something in return. We're going to give you discounted rates, like a free session or we don't call it free, we say complimentary because you don't want
Yeah,
to use the word free, but we say complimentary session, and then we give some kind of a discount towards their product purchases and stuff. And then we don't stress that you have to purchase something. There is a deposit to put down and all that stuff, but it's a way to get people in the door. Our shtick that we've been using for several years now is and it's true, we're always looking for social media content, because if you go to our social media, we have new photos and new pictures and stuff every single day. And so if there's 365 days a year and we're posting once a day, we need at least 365 different families and photos and stuff. So we use that. And then by them doing the session, they agree to allow us to use their photos on social
mm,
media and everything. So you're giving that discount for that, whatever. But what happens, and I think where you're just going with the dogs that are like the show dogs and stuff,
mm,
they're like models. And what
mm,
we get a lot of times with wanted stuff is we get people who think they're models, or they're
mm.
aspiring models, and they come in and they think it's a model call. And a lot of models or aspiring models are used to shoot for trade. You
Yeah,
shoot me, I'm going to give you all the photos and let me use it on the portfolio. But like, if you're shooting for trade, stop doing that. Make some money off of what you're doing, even if it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
little, right? Stop doing everything for free.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
because
unless
it's not helping you, and it's not helping the industry in any way, shape, or form.
yeah. Well, I actually did a proper model with a friend of. Hang on, let me get this right. So my sister-in-law's daughter's friend. I needed some girls with tattoos, and I
Okay.
went looked through all my photos and went, man, I've got nothing here that we get approved by Facebook. Nothing. Like they're all
Right, right.
topless or whatever. And so I got her in and photographed her with no expectation at all of getting anything out of her, any sales that is. But she'll end up, I offered her an album or something like that pretty cheap, and she'll buy that. But I tell you something interesting though, John. Like you say that you got a reason for doing the wanted ads. I actually stopped giving a reason. I don't even mention any reason now. I just say wanted, and I don't give
No,
any.
yeah. I mean, so for me, it's if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so that's kind of like where I'm at with like
Yeah,
what is working for me is what is working, and that's why we just
yeah.
continue to do it. Um, but I know people do it. It's like, hey, we need to put some new stuff on.
Mm,
Uh, sorry,
yeah.
I got a train of thought. I got a message on the side here. So
That's all good.
business still goes while we're having a podcast. But anyway, but no, so like on my wanted ads, I've seen people do like, oh, we're looking for new wall displays or albums and stuff, whatever your stick is. But you're right, you don't have to say anything. It's more
Yeah,
of
yeah,
just a means to get people wanting to come in and do
yeah,
something with you, right? And you're giving a discount.
yeah,
It's no different than saying, hey, come in and do a session, and we're going to give you, don't use percentages. I've tried the percentage thing, and percentages don't work as much, but use a dollar amount,
yeah,
$500 off your session or whatever, but
yeah,
whatever that is for you.
yeah, yeah.
But that's what works. But wanted ads are working for you. That's amazing because, I mean, or just Facebook ads in general too are working for you because that's what's bringing in business and you're doing a
Yeah,
great job.
yeah, yeah.
So my next question I have for you is, I know you work 6, 7, 8 months a year, and then you take this time off and you go gallivanting around. You're in Portugal right now and all that stuff.
Hang on. I'll just
Does
stop you
that
there. This is the first time I've done it, so
Oh,
it's
okay, it's your first time I've done it. So,
yeah, yeah.
but so you might not be able to answer this question. How do you feel like that is affecting the flow of your business? So, like one of the things that I mean, personally, I've been afraid of taking that long period of time off because it's just like now your flow is broken, and then like getting back in, it's like you're starting over, or you're starting from scratch again.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like with the portrait stuff, it doesn't really matter that much, in my opinion, because you just get back. Like I've got shoots scheduled for when we get back. Like I just told them the truth. I said, look, we're going away. We're not back till April. And I said, oh, that's fine. We'll just do it then, and so that's fine. But with the headshot stuff, that's taken a hit, to be truthful. Like I one of my clients called me up, who I'd photographed previously. I'd done 142 headshots in one day for this company at a conference, which is like an $8,000 job. And they contacted me and said, "Can you come and do it again?" I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm overseas." I was really annoyed that I was overseas for a split second. So so it does affect that, but in terms of the portrait stuff, I don't think so. As long as you're in the right frame of mind when you get back to get into it, I think that's fine.
But it
But
doesn't affect you in the sense of like, you're taking that break, and then are you scheduling it all during that time when you guys are away, or are you doing any work whatsoever like in this time that you're in Portugal?
um,
Like, are you doing any bookings and stuff like that?
well, I did not off ads. No, I've got all my ads scheduled to go off uh, about 3 days before we get back. So I'll spend a week on the phone and book in a couple of months worth. Um, but I have been, yeah, like I had an inquiry come through by text or referral. And I said, look, I can't call you. Can I call you on WhatsApp? Because I can't call you because I'm overseas. And she's good to go. She's coming in. We just got to firm it up when I get back. So I'm doing a little bit, but not huge amounts, John. No.
Okay. No, that's awesome. Like that you're not having to do anything while you're on vacation, so to
Hmm.
speak. It's not a working vacation.
No, 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 no.
So is it just you in your business, or do you have other people? Do you have a phone person? Like who else works with you in your business?
Okay, so it's me, obviously, my wife Tracy. So Tracy, just to explain, so Tracy and I go way back in business. Like we started well over 20 years ago, and so Tracy's always been the administrator. She's always done, kept the bookkeeping and just kept the place running because I'm not very good at that. I'm more the loudmouth in the business, who makes a big mess and just leaves it there, if you know what I mean. So she does that, and so she does all the things like schedules the calls for me to make the calls via text. Um, she books in the hair and makeup artists and things like that. Just basically all the details to make the days and the weeks run smoothly. We don't we outsource all the retouching. I haven't retouched anything in forever. I just refuse to do it.
Amen. That's a big push that I'm trying to get people to understand this year.
Mate, I don't know why anyone would retouch. It is so cheap. Like we
Well,
pay.
I don't understand why people want to spend all the time. What it comes down to is it's a control thing. You lose control of your stuff, but people
Yeah,
people maybe have
No,
been burnt by bad editors or something, or haven't tried an editor. But like I agree, you're going to say the
well,
same thing probably. It's just like
no,
you got to find the right person. And again, I actually am interviewing another an editor here next week just to talk about editing
yeah,
and showing
no.
people that you should do editing outsource because there's no time for that.
My retoucher can do 800 times better job than I can do.
Oh,
She,
amen. Amen. I
she's
can do it,
so
but it's
much,
going to take me three times as long.
yeah. So we've got her. We just pay her on a per thing on a per job basis. So we just drop her photos, and they come back pretty quickly. The one thing I do is try and do everything as I go. Like, you know what I mean? So you finish a session, we do it all the same day. We do the IPS, sell them whatever. So what we do is we do make sure we drop the photos off to the editor within 24 hours straight away. We don't fart around because, you just forget things. Like they might say, "Oh, can you Photoshop out that scar?" And you just forget because too much time goes by. So we're very disciplined in that regard. So that all happens. And we've got 4 hair and makeup artists who we get on contract basis as well. So we just pay them per job. So to answer your question, it's just me and Tracy with a whole bunch of subcontractors. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what kind of advice would you get as we close here to anybody that's wanting to kind of start their own business and get going in the photography world? What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, my advice would be for any business, because I've had a few, is don't neglect the accounting. That would be step one. So go and get some help with your accounting and set up a chart of accounts and all that type of thing, and learn how to read your own numbers. Like, understand what a profit and loss means, understand how much money you're making. And my other big piece of advice is pay your damn tax as you go, because nothing will hurt you more than a big tax bill 2 years later that you've got to pay and you haven't got the money for. Because then you get into this vicious cycle. Oh, I've got to make all this money to pay my tax, and you're making all this money to pay your tax, and you're accumulating more tax. You know what I mean?
No, I
So I'm
get it.
not sure how it works in America, but in Australia, I imagine it's exactly the same. But just pay your tax as you go, and do your return and have the money there to pay for it. That kills more businesses than I can think of, is by having tax bills that haven't been paid.
Right.
So that
Right.
would be my main bit of advice for anyone in business, would be to pay someone to set up your chart of accounts and learn how to read you and learn how to read your figures and keep your finger on the pulse of what you're doing financially, and not rely on a bookkeeper to do it. I firmly believe that. I think you've got to be able to do, and it's not hard to do. It's like anything. If you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to do it. So you need to get some help, and there's tons of people that'll show you how to do it. Your accountant will teach you, a bookkeeper will teach you.
Right.
That would be my big one for sure.
Yeah. So for me
And,
this year,
and it's a highly neglected thing.
no,
Never
it
get
is.
you know.
It is. It is. I had a bookkeeper that I've used for the last 3 years, or well, yeah, 3 years plus, and she was great. But I changed accountants and bookkeepers and stuff this year. And
Yeah.
one of the things I wish I would have done it a couple of years ago is I read the book Profit First,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and so I'm a big push for that this year because it just in I switched over to this accountant full up on in January 1st because it was a nice clean break from
Hmm.
the previous year cycle to this year.
Yeah.
And just in 1 month, I've seen improvements in things that like I didn't have improvement on in previous years.
Yeah.
But it's like what you're saying. It's just like when you look at your money and like in a skinny of it, Profit First kind of breaks it down into different buckets and
Okay.
stuff like
Okay.
that. And you have taxes and you have payroll and you have all that kind of stuff, right? And so each one of these sub accounts that you have is built to fund that piece of the pie. So, like when you have a tax account, you're putting a percentage in there,
Yeah.
you'll have
Yeah.
the money for taxes when it's
Yeah.
time to go and
Yeah.
pay your taxes, as opposed to, you're like, oh crap, I got to do that today,
Yeah. I
or,
mean,
or whatever.
it's completely boring, but it's probably in my opinion, the most important thing you can do. Otherwise,
Yeah, and I think the more you get into your business and the bigger you grow, people do it for themselves, but you get to a point that I feel like you have to get somebody that's going to help you, even if it's like monthly, that's going to audit your books or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
and kind of
Well,
make sure you're not
yeah.
doing something that you shouldn't be doing or, whatever. So,
Yeah, I think it's important to have a good accountant. We've got a CPA, which means a chartered practicing accountant in Australia.
mhm.
I don't imagine there's equivalent over there. And he's a good guy. And we just any questions we just call him. And the one thing I've never been is too proud to ask for advice, like ever. Like like back when I had a computer company, I was very lucky. Because I was a young man then. A lot of my clients became my mentors, and I would just call them up and ask them for help, and they're always very happy to help, if you know what I mean. So it's worth, in my opinion, uh, having when you're new, especially, is finding some people who can offer you guidance for, in legal matters, accounting matters, whatever it might be, because you do need that help. The other thing I would suggest, mate, is I'll tell you one of the biggest mistakes I made, and this is what I learned, and I've applied it to photography. Is when I had a computer when we had our computer company 20 years ago. The computer company we had was um, we serviced lawyers, doctors, accountants, and other professional officers. And the biggest mistake I made when I first started was I didn't charge enough. Okay.
Mm, mm,
And so the reason I didn't charge enough is I was operating from a place of fear. I thought, oh, geez, I'm too dear. Then they won't employ me. I won't win their business. And what happens there is that is from there you constantly then you got this problem where you've undervalued your time, and as a result, it's very difficult to increase your rates with your existing clients. You can really only do it incrementally without losing them, if that makes sense.
right.
So how does that apply to photography? So I think it's really important that you, as a photographer, figure out what you want to charge for your work, for your wall art or albums or whatever it is you're doing, and don't fall into that trap of being too cheap at the beginning. Like say, all right, so I'm only going to charge, $1,000 for this wall collection or whatever. In a couple of years' time, I'll get it up to John's level or Richard's level or whatever and charge $3,000 for it. Because what happens is when you do that, if you've got that plan of increasing your prices as you go, then you lose all your referral base. So you essentially have to start again. So my biggest piece of advice is just set your prices on where you want to be at the beginning, and then you're okay. Then you don't have to do it again. But you know what I mean? Otherwise, you get these. I had this with the $100 weddings. I'd get these people contact me, and I'd quote them. They go, "Oh, okay, I didn't realize it'd be that much." You never hear from them again. And so I think it's really important to not fall in that trap of pricing yourself too cheap from the beginning because you're scared of not getting business. It's really important to price yourself correctly from the outset. And that's where someone like you could help, John, like because you've got all that experience in pricing collections, is is you can advise people on what to price things at, and you'll give them the confidence, or whether it be you or someone else or whoever, but give them that confidence that how they're pricing them is doable. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and it's so important to make sure that you're pricing yourself in a place like it's a two-way street to me.
Hmm.
One where you're going to be making money, but the other side of it is you have to have that confidence. And for some people, the confidence is harder than making the money. Like you gotta, because when I first started, I put myself at a reasonable level, but I wasn't making tons of money from different things. But also as I've grown in my business, my costs have grown. When you're doing $100,000, I mean, I talked about this in our kind of kicking off the year goal setting
Hmm.
podcast. Um, but when you're starting off and you're only doing 100,000, you're probably just working by yourself and you don't
Hmm.
have as much overhead. But when
Hmm.
you're running like a 500, 600, $700,000 business, you're going to be adding overhead, editor, call person,
Hmm.
maybe another photographer, and all that kind of stuff. And you're
Hmm.
having to pay those people for different things. So obviously your structure needs to be different and your pricing can't stay the same
Yeah.
incrementally.
Yeah.
But for the building that confidence for me when I first started, and it was just me doing it. I've always had an editor. I was like you. I just never
Hmm.
wanted to do the editing because I knew
Hmm.
other people were better at it than me. And so I always made sure I incorporated that. But as I grew, I had to raise my pricing, but also I had to raise the confidence in raising my prices. So like, at first I was like, okay, I'm going to raise it to $50 this month. I'm going to raise it $100 this month on everything or whatever,
Mm,
until I got to a point where it's like, okay, I feel comfortable with where I'm at.
mm,
I actually got to a point where I felt like the pricing that I had was diminishing returns. And so I
mm,
was
mm,
just like, I think I went too high. And so
mm.
I felt like I was in a happy medium for where I was at and what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I've kept it there. I have very I've we tweak things like we make new packages and stuff like that, but our pricing pretty much has stayed the same for the last 2.5 years, like
Yeah. Yeah.
overall, like the cost of good markup and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that when you're first starting out, you don't just do everything for free. We have to have like you need to charge something. And even if it's
Uh-huh.
like, hey, I'm going to do a headshot session because I'm trying to build my portfolio and I'm going to give you one headshot, but I'll charge if you want more than one, here's how much it is.
Yeah.
If they
Yeah.
come in and they just do one, then they just do one.
Mm,
But it gives you the opportunity to do a bunch of cool headshots for them or different portraits and stuff,
mm.
and then they can choose on their own, and then it's
Yeah.
up to you to perform
Yeah.
and make it so that they want more than just one photo, you know what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But yeah, no, this has been great, Richard. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your vacation in Portugal and talking to us and stuff. So, where can people find you and connect with you if they wanted to reach out to you?
So the website is thriveboudoir.com.au. So that's THRIVE boudoir.com.au. Headshot site is I've got two sites,
Okay.
thrivephotography.com.au. And then if you just search for Thrive Photography on Instagram and Facebook, you'll
Right.
find me.
And we'll
Yeah.
put links in that in the show notes and all that stuff if you want to do that. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
like
awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
and I believe Richard's already in the group, but if he's not, I'm going to make sure I tag him and get him into the group. But if you have any questions for Richard after this is posted and stuff, please feel free to reach him down at the bottom, and I'm sure Richard is happy to respond.
Yeah.
He's a really cool guy, and he and I have had many chats over the years about
Yeah.
business, and he's a great
Yeah.
guy to pick his brain and talk to. Richard, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on here and giving me some chance to talk to you and getting some insight into your business and what you're doing. And I hope this is helpful for everybody else that's out here. Again, thanks again for being on here.
Thank you, John.
All right. We'll talk to y'all later and we'll talk to you soon, Richard. Thanks.
That's it.